Okay, so today I want to boil down 1 million different options on how you can buy a second home, and let's use a buzzword, Airbnb, short-term rental, somewhere that we can go vacation for yourself. Let's say that you're not the big wig investor, that you may have a house, one house, and you want to get a second one. I am literally going to give you the blueprint on how you could do this right now in this market, have a second home, a place for you to vacation, and have other people pay for it. Okay, so here's the deal. I want to talk to all of the homeowners out there who have lived in their property for, let's say, 2+ years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You've been working, you've been paying your mortgage, you're the all-American family, but you've always had that dream to have a river property or a lake house or a cabin, something like that, right? And you haven't done it. And you're hearing this key phrase, Airbnb or short-term rental, and people paying your mortgage, all these fun things. Guess who's doing it? I'm doing it. I'm doing it in over 5 states, and I want to show you how to do this. So if you already own a gazillion Airbnbs, this video is not for you. If you don't own any and you want to own one, keep listening, okay? So somebody's lived in their house for 2+ years. They probably have some equity in their house. They've been good boys, good girls. They're paying their mortgage. They're just kind of doing life. But I actually call equity in a house little soldiers. You have a lot of little soldiers in your home that you need to utilize and release out there so that they can go make bigger purchases for you. So let's talk about some options that a homeowner has on how to release some of those soldiers to go out and buy themselves another house. What are some options that a homeowner has?
That's a great question, and there's a couple of options. Number one, they can do what's called a cash out refinance, where they go in, they refinance, they pull money out of their house right away because they've built that equity. And like you said, over the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, that's shot up. So there's definitely probably some equity in the home. That is one option. Option number 2 is a HELOC, and that's a home equity line of credit where you basically get essentially a big credit line on your house that you can use when you want to use it. If you have 0 balance on it, you pay 0 interest.
Perfect.
If you borrow it, you pay more.
And let's stop there because I get so many people that get those 2 terms intertwined. So we're talking about 2 different options. One is a cash out refinance. With a cash out refinance, let's say I was sitting at a smoking interest rate, like 3.5% or something, and now the interest rates are at 6. When I do a cash out refinance, you're refining to that new interest rate, correct?
Correct.
Whereas a HELOC, HELOC, home equity line of credit, completely different, guys, okay? If I do a HELOC, how does that look?
So a HELOC is essentially a credit line, or you could say a big credit card against your house.
That's how I envision it.
But it's at a very reasonable rate. It's based off of the Fed funds rate. Usually it's like the prime rate plus a margin. And so even though the prime rate has gone up, it's still very reasonable. It's not even close to what you would even pay on a credit card. It's way lower. But it's tapping into that equity. And you can use it when you want to use it.
Whenever you want. And I'm actually going to divulge my personal information. So a couple of years ago, I decided to do a HELOC myself. I pulled out about $180,000 out of my house, and I currently have about a 4.75% interest rate. Now, I've had that sitting on the sidelines for 2 years because you never know when opportunity is going to present itself, and that's the beautiful thing about a HELOC. I do think of it as a credit card. So I essentially have this fictitious credit card sitting over here, and when I see a house or maybe an investment that I want to use it for, I can use it. But it's $180,000 sitting over here. Maybe I only want to use $50,000. Can I do that? Can I only use
100%.
I can use whatever
you can use whatever you want. And the best time to borrow money is honestly when you don't need the money. And if you're not sure about a house right now, but you want to be prepared, ready to go, make a decision, it's best to have that HELOC in line now so that when the opportunity comes up, you tap it in, you put the down payment in, boom, and you got a house.
And I'll tell you the reason why. That's such a great response. Think about a HELOC before you need it, because things happen. I actually was in the middle of doing my HELOC, and the reason why I finished it was pre-March 2020. So right as COVID was hitting, I had 15 homes that I owned at that time, and I was super concerned that all these people weren't gonna pay me rent. And of course, you don't wanna liquidate your own savings, so having this additional money on the side is always really cool. I digress. Let's get back to buying Airbnbs or short-term rental, okay? So let's use a HELOC. I wanna go down that route because with the refinance route, we already talked about that interest rate shifting. Okay, Let's just use a round number, like $100,000. Okay, so Bill, you're sitting in your house, you've got a ton of equity, you could probably pull out more than 100, but let's be conservative, let's pull out $100,000 and let's sit it aside. In this market, I've got time to browse, I got time to get on airplanes, I get time to go places. I'm currently looking in the state of Washington. Lots of people like water properties next to the beach, rivers, or lakes in the state of Washington, okay? So that's where I'm looking to purchase. Maybe you want to purchase there too. Let's go ahead and break down some numbers. So you pull out $100,000.
Right.
If I want to go buy an investment property, I usually need to put down, you're going to hear a lot of people say 20%. But to get a better interest rate, you're probably going to have to put down
25%.
25%. So when you're looking at those purchasing prices or those list prices, I want you to factor in needing to put down 25% to get yourself the best interest rate. And I won't go into refining down the line when interest rates drop and things like that, but that's just good to know. So you have $100,000. That could buy you potentially a $500,000 house. I think your closing costs would put you just over $100,000, maybe by 12 grand, like 112,000, something like that. But I already did the pre-calculations, and about 5.75% interest rate, $100,000 down on a $500,000 home, their mortgage would be about $2,875. And that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. No, I'm not just giving you principal and interest, taxes and insurance. The only numbers that I'm not going over right now, right here, are going to probably be utilities, if you have HOAs, and if you have property managers, okay? So those are gonna be some overhead costs that you're gonna wanna kind of think about. But the main chunk of what you're gonna be paying monthly, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, $2,875. Now, doing some research, because all of these numbers are fresh in my head, I've been looking in the state of Washington, a lot of the lake homes, for a minimum, are renting out around $400 a night.
Nice.
$400 a night. So to cover my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, I'd have to rent that property out for about 7 days out of 30 a month. I only have to rent it out for 7 days for somebody else to pay that mortgage. Now, of course, I'm probably gonna wanna factor in a couple extra days, let's call it 8 or 9 days of rental to also cover the amount that I used on the HELOC, because there's a payment over there. So that payment plus the payment of the house, I rent out the property for, let's say, 8 or 9 days a month, and boom, you utilize the little soldiers in your primary residence to buy you a secondary asset that other people are going to pay for monthly, while hopefully gaining equity, and gives you a second place to go on vacation and use as your own. So I would say talk to a lender like this mortgage expert, Mr. Gaylord Hansen, and talk about cash out refis. HELOCs would be a great option, and go get yourself another asset. Please remember, if you have any questions at the end of the day that are real estate related, Airbnb, short-term rental, buying and selling, all the things, who's your homegirl? I'm your homegirl.